Hello, friends. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 2 of A Sound Conversation, a monthly podcast where we get to chat with some wonderful people about life, music, and the business of both. I'm your host, Paapa Versa, and before we move on, a little disclaimer. I have a stutter or a stammer, so to those watching or listening, if there's a long pause or interruption in my speech, it's not you or your Wi-Fi, it's probably me. All right, moving on. It is such an honor to have today's guest on my show. He's a professional bass player who has worked alongside artists like Eric Clapton and Bob Dylan. He was the founding director of the Brighton Institute of Modern Music, or BIM, which has produced the likes of George Ezra, James Bay. I could keep going on and on and on. He sold his shares in BIM, though, several years ago, and he's evolved into the founder and lead educator of DK Music Business Academy, or DK MBA, which I'm a lifetime member of. His is a voice that I've been listening to for several years that has shaped how I practically navigate the music business. He's inspired and equipped thousands of independent artists to thrive in the new music business without ever asking artists to change their voice or their sound, but just to evolve how they bring their magic to the market. Friends, it is my honor to welcome Damian Keyes to the podcast. Damian, welcome.
Dude, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I need to take you around with me all the time. That was the nicest intro ever.
I want to make people feel as honored as they should be and deserve to be on this show. So it's an honor to have you. Damian, I used so many words to introduce you and describe you, but how would you describe yourself?
I think I would just describe myself as someone who is inquisitive about the music industry. You know, when you're younger and you have all these hopes and dreams and ambitions of all the things you wanted to do, and and through a bunch of sliding doors sort of moments, you end up going on a certain path.
Yeah. And
my path took a detour from being in the music industry, or from being a musician and touring and stuff, to being full on into music education.
Right.
And I just loved it. I just, every day I would wake up, when we were building the music college, even now, with DK MBA, I wake up and I'm like, this is awesome. When you're like yourself, when you're a musician and people ask you, like, what's it like to be on tour?
Right.
And you really want to say, oh my God, it's so rock and roll. And half the time you're like, it's quite dull, actually. Like, you get a couple of hours where you're on stage and it's really fun, but there's a lot of driving, there's a lot of waiting, there's a lot of the same people that you get annoyed with, there's a lot of eating the same food. And with
not very good food.
Exactly, yeah. And music education is different every time. I'm talking to different people from all over the world who've got different aspirations and different thoughts and different skills. And it's like everyone's got a different jigsaw puzzle that they're trying to piece together, which makes it really exciting. Yeah. And then there's this ever moving music industry, which is changing every week. And I'll say something one week, and then a couple of weeks later, I'll be like, oh, no, stop. Everything's changed. We've got to do something completely different. And I love that. I love the fact that it's not as simple as just a paint by numbers scheme where you just say, look, make music and put it out. It's different. It's different now in 2022 than it was 6 months ago in 2021, which is very, very different to where it was in early 2020 before all of this, shenanigans happened. And so every few months there's a new bit of technology or a new social media or a new consumption habit or just something different that comes out. Or now we're talking NFTs and meta and everything changes. And as soon as that changes, all of the goalposts kind of change for musicians. And I just think that's just a fun challenge.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed by everything you have to keep? Because I mean, you've kind of made yourself to be the one who's trying to like keep up with the trends and help artists just to understand them. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by just that responsibility that you've taken on?
Yeah, I think I'm just like everybody else. I'll watch YouTube or whatever social media platform, and I'm watching Gary Vee or whoever's out there, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, how does he do that? And then I realize he's got like 35 members of staff, and I go, oh, that helps.
Makes sense.
Helps.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, I'm just like everyone else. I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm trying to be as consistent as I can with my socials, which is hard. It's so difficult. Burnout is real. Anxiety is real. Imposter syndrome is real. I got a call not so long back from a huge label, worldwide label, Silicon Valley label. And I was in the meeting and I was just like, this is crazy. Like, what do you want?
Like,
why do you want to talk
here?
to? Yeah, what am I doing here? And I'm like, imposter syndrome is real. Having anxiety and burnout, where I'm sat there scratching my head, thinking, "Oh no, I've got to make more content, and I've kind of run out of things to say today." And like everybody else, we're all in the same boat. We've all trying to keep this consistency and trying to release, our own creative and our own story. And so I don't think I get overwhelmed in the way that I've got quite a stoic mentality where everything is just one foot in front of the other.
Okay.
Every day is just another day to chip away at something. That 1%, I really believe in that kind of 1% module. If I can take one foot in front of the other, and I'm not looking at the mountain, I'm just looking at one step. And if I keep looking at one step and the next step and the next step, I don't have to worry about the mountain. The mountain will just eventually will come to me.
Yeah.
So not so much overwhelmed, but all of the rest of the things I get the same as everybody else. And I'm sure, other than probably Gary V, I think everyone feels the same.
Other than Gary V, yeah, he seems like the most confident and also most equipped of everyone in this space. But much shout out to him. I'd love to have him on the show. So that'd be sick. That would be sick. So I'm gonna make it happen one way or another. Gotta be on this show. Oh my god, that'd be crazy. I mean, so I guess, like, at heart, do you consider yourself more of an artist or entrepreneur, or is there even a difference between both?
That's a great question. I think I wouldn't class myself as an artist in the way that, I don't make music, having been a bass player. And the other thing with being a bass player compared to a lot of other artists, I feel like I can say this, but I don't want to speak for all bass players, but it isn't the most creative instrument compared to melodic instruments. So,
Thundercat might think differently. Thundercat might have an opinion on that. So.
Absolutely. I'm sure there are guys out there who just take it to the nth degree. But, from my point of view, playing bass, plodding along, doing the thing. And so I feel like when it comes to, I would never class myself as an entrepreneur. I would love it if someone classed me as an entrepreneur, but at the same point, I would never. I think that word entrepreneur is almost like saying good looking, isn't it? Where if someone says, well, I'm very good looking, you kind of go, you can't say that. If someone else can say about you.
Okay, interesting.
Because I feel like, I like creating things. I like building things, whether it's building a college or an online education platform, whether it's building a band, whether it's building an album, whether it's working together on a project.
Yeah.
I think I just like building stuff. And so I would class myself as just someone who just likes to create. And that my version of creation isn't music. My version of creation is just building either a business or, or something similar to that.
Would you say that the music business is just as much an art as the music itself?
100%. Yeah, the music business is exactly that. And so we are in this very delicate time where if you look at, because the music industry is not particularly that old. If you look at the music industry as such has been going since, some people will say 100 years, but realistically from that kind of 1950s, 1960s period, let's say kind of Elvis, the Beatles-ish kind of era.
Yeah.
So you're talking about an industry which is 70-ish, 75 years old, which as an industry is pretty young. And so if you look at all of the differences that have happened over the last, say, even 50 years, I mean, we're talking about things that are happening over the last 10, but we've gone from different mechanical things like vinyl, cassettes, CDs, MP3s, everything keeps changing all of the time. Record labels are changing. Now we're in this kind of streaming world. You've got social media. Social media wasn't there 20 years ago. No. If you look at concert ticket prices now compared to where they were, navigating the whole thing is an absolute art form. And so, I see my job as, this isn't about saying I have music, how do I promote the music? This is about the overall architecture of an ecosystem of a brand, of building a brand. And the brand is you and your music. And the difference between an artist and a label is an artist wants to promote music, whereas a label wants to use the music to promote the brand. So it's using the music to build something, which is a slight difference to an artist just saying, I just want to get this heard. And so if you can use the music to build something, then you can monetize it in many, many different ways.
Interesting.
And so the message of the artist, the creative, the content, the music, the skill, all of that sort of filters around this ecosystem. And so if we only think of the music, then it's kind of like if we went into a boxing match and we had one punch. You just think, well, this has to be the best punch I've ever thrown, and I have to connect 100%. And I have to hope that when I do connect, it does the job, because I've got nothing left. Whereas if we're thinking of this as how we bring value to an audience, how we bring people in, how we look after them, how we deliver value in music and content and a connection between the two, if we can do all of those things, at that point, now it isn't one big punch. Now we're looking at how the whole game works, all of the jabs, all of the moves, all of the big punches, everything together fits, how everything fits together as an ecosystem. So I think the whole thing is pure art. And so, and I think nowadays what's amazing, as we've gone into micro content with TikTok, Reels, and YouTube Shorts, especially TikTok, who sort of really launched this sort of micro content. You're seeing artists now who have got millions, like literally millions of followers from 7 to 15-second pieces of content. And the way they're using that 15-second piece of content might be original music, it might be covers, it might be trends, it might be just fun things. And can you imagine if this was like this? If this was 1995 or going into early 2000s, when you needed a record label, you needed a gatekeeper, because they had to pay for the studio, which nowadays we just do in the house. Whereas back then, it was like, back then it would be like $2,000 a day for a studio, let alone the engineer, the producer, and everything else. You might be there for a month or 2 months. Then after that, we've got to go and print 10,000 CDs or 100,000 CDs or 1,000,000 CDs. Then after that, we've got to go and buy a bunch of lorries and get them to take all of this stuff to the distribution network. You're talking like millions and millions of dollars just to get a CD in a shop. And so with all of that in mind, nowadays it's like, I just made it in the bedroom, and I've just uploaded it via DistroKid onto Spotify, and jobs are good. And so, now you've got sort of what used to cost millions and millions of dollars in PR and advertising can now potentially be done for free. And the reason why I say that, because this sounds like something that we could have done for years. The problem is the last couple of years, the organic reach of Facebook and Instagram has been declining more and more and more. And it's only been the last 12 months. In fact, I'd say the last 6, but the last 12 months where we've got this, the two worlds have combined, which is organic reach from TikTok and Reels, but TikTok. At the same time, it's mainstream enough that the platform isn't too cheesy or too awkward to be on, if that makes sense. So artists were coming to me, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and saying, should I be on TikTok? And I was like, I want to say yes, but I'm also, every time I go on TikTok, it's just children dancing. And so many artists didn't feel comfortable being on that platform. Well, that's gone away. And we're in this beautiful time of organic reach on a platform that is acceptable to promote music on. And I don't know how long that's going to be around for, but the question is, how do you do that in a consumption habit, or how do we do that in a way that the person watching will enjoy? How can I make something that promotes my song in 10 seconds via a video that someone can literally use their little finger and just go, there you go, there you are, there you're gone. There you are, there you're gone. That's and so, the big question is how do I use that 10 seconds to grab someone's attention for long enough that they say, hey, this is good. I'm going to check this out. Let me come on into your TikTok, or let me scroll across and then come into Spotify and listen.
What do you think about LinkedIn as an option?
I think LinkedIn is a different. I don't think it's the best option for promoting music as such, but I think it's a really good option for networking and meeting people and befriending people who can push your music.
Sure.
So, for example, if I went on LinkedIn and I said, hey, I've got a new song out, a lot of people would be like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like the consumption.
Right.
Yeah, it feels off. But let's say I was listening to some kind of acoustic chilled song. I had an acoustic chilled song. Instead of going and playing that song or trying to get that song played on LinkedIn, what I could do is I could go on LinkedIn, I could do a search for chill DJs or chilled radio DJs or online radio DJs.
Right.
I can find those people and I can go across to LinkedIn and I can find out who they are and I can drop them a line. So, all of a sudden the people are there, they're just they're in a different headspace. So they're not there saying, please let me listen to your music on LinkedIn. Right. But I was a radio DJ for 2 years and I had a show which was 3 hours a night, 4 nights a week. So when people say, oh, it's really hard to get your music on radio, my first initial thought is you're not trying hard enough, because I remember having 3 hours of a show every single night, 4 nights a week. And I've got to fill all of that with
what do I do?
Music. Yeah. And imagine sitting there and going, well, what are you going to do for 3 hours? It's easy to say, I'll play music. Well, it's like, well, what music? Right. And when someone comes up and says, hey, I've got a new single out, I'd love to come on the show and promote it. Absolutely. What day are you free? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? When are you free? Can you bring your guitar in? Bring your whole band. Yeah. Because in my head, I'm like, not only are they going to do something interesting, but also they're going to tell all their friends who are going to listen to the show. And so, it isn't as hard. It's the same thing with, local newspapers and magazines. People think it's very difficult to get in those things. But the reality is, imagine if you're a newspaper editor and the newspaper's 50 pages and it's the morning and you just say, what are we going to put in our 50 pages? Because we know it's going out. We know that paper's going out. We know that magazine's going out once a week. And as soon as it's gone out, then at that moment, you're like, oh God, we've got to do that all over again tomorrow. Yeah. And then the next day and the next day and the next day. Right. So if you've got a great story, you're in. You're in.
I mean, I think to me reflects a lot of the imposter syndrome and lack of perspective that I think a lot of artists have, myself included. Because I mean, I'm used to thinking, oh man, I'm bothering this person, right? Or like, whatever. But then what you're saying is like, yo, your content is a way you're even adding value and even maybe like doing those platforms a favor, right?
Absolutely.
Rather than, than the other way around. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely do me a favor. And to the point where, every so often we would do competition. We'd run competitions on the radio. And people think, I'm not going to enter a competition on a radio. I'm not going to win because they're thinking of this like the lottery, and there's millions of people who enter the lottery. You wouldn't believe the amount of times that we were giving away 2 tickets to some, like a big band, like the Foo Fighters, for example, might be playing in town. They might give us 2 tickets and just say, look, there's your 2 tickets. Run it as a competition. Yeah, they get some publicity, and we get 2 tickets. Yeah, and it's given to me. You get 2 people to call in. First callers will win 2 tickets. And it's like half an hour into the show. And I'm like, nobody's calling.
No one. Wow.
It's because everyone just believes that will not happen because everyone else is going to ring. It's pointless. It's worthless. And, usually the people who take a chance, the people who will ring in, or the people who will contact the radio station and just say, hey, I've got a new single out. I'd love to send it to you. If it's presented in the right way,
sure,
got a good shot.
I mean, maybe that might be a function of just me being an artist, and most of my peers are also, artists, and so it seems like everyone's an artist. So it seems like we must all be trying to do the same thing and trying to get the same attention from not only the audience but the radio DJs and all that stuff. So is that all just in our heads, or is that like what? Yeah,
I don't think it's. I wouldn't say it's in your heads, but I would say whilst there's more music being pushed, more artists being pushed, but there's more opportunities like this right now. Right, you're saying, well, hey, I want to do a podcast. There's a new opportunity for other people. Right. So there is a lot of opportunities as well. And I think the big thing here is everything in the music industry revolves around proof. So way back in the day, if a label was going to sign an artist, they would have a gut instinct, and everything was a gut instinct, and it would be like, I like this band, I like these people, and therefore I think I can make something work. And then a lot of money would be invested. And I got signed to a major when I was younger, and we didn't break. Nothing happened. We got shelved. Nothing happened, and that happened probably 50 times a month with major labels. It was just one of them might go, 50 of them might not.
Interesting.
What happens there is, whilst you're trying very, very hard to to get the attention, I think the biggest part of this for me comes from proof. So let's say, fast forwarded from those times to now, if you say, I can get 50 people to a venue to watch me play, you've now got the leverage. If you say, oh, I've got 20,000 people who genuinely are on my Instagram, or even 500 people on my Instagram who genuinely care about what I do, you've got the leverage.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it comes to leverage, because if someone approaches you for this podcast and says, hey, I'd love to be on your podcast, and you say, well, who are you? What do you do? If they say, well, this is what I do, this is my interesting story, but I also have 10,000 people that I think will enjoy listening to this, then they've got the leverage. And so whether it's a label, whether it's a live agent, whether it's a manager, every day I'll get someone message me and say, can you be my manager? With no idea if I'd be a good manager or not, just because I know what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean I've got the right temperament or people skills or time management to be a good manager. If people say, do you want to be my manager? And I'm thinking, I'd be an awful manager. I'd be a terrible manager.
Why don't you think you will be a good manager?
I think I because I'm an educator, so I feel like I think everyone has a different temperament and a different. I've met a lot of music industry managers, and they're just a very different temperament to myself, and that's nothing. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. I just don't have the I just don't have the temperament. I think I have the temperament and the patience for teaching. I have the temperament and patience for building. Right. But if someone doesn't do what I want them to do, then how do I get them to do that thing? Do I shout at them? Do I plead with them? Do I try and sort of blackmail them? And so everyone's got different temperaments and everyone's got different skill sets in what they do. So, but I feel like now is the time that when someone says, I've got music, I want a label or I want a manager, they are all there everyone's there for the taking. You could get a manager, you could get a label, but what you've got to do is you've got to say, well, hang on, let me show you this works. If I can show you this works, everyone's interested, because everybody wants to be on the winning side. Yeah. So, and the way that you show that it works isn't the music. And I think this is probably the hardest message, because all artists want it to be purely about the music. Yeah, right. And so, it's like, here's my music. I want you to listen to the music, and something's just going to go off in your head, and you're going to say, this is the greatest music I've ever heard. Yeah. But the reality is, even if that's the case, most people say, well, I like it, but will everybody else like it? And there's always this, this worry. So if you said, well, hang on a minute, let me go out there, let me take this to market the same way as if this was Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or one of those programs where people take, entrepreneurial gadgets, and they, if it was one of those things and said, hey, I've invented a widget, right? The people on the panel are going to say, okay, does it work? Yes. Right. Okay. How many have you sold? If you say, I haven't sold any at all, alarm bells. Well, why haven't you sold any? Right. Surely if this is good, you should be able to sell. Right. Same thing. We've got the ability to be able to get our music out there. And so I think this is where I come in, is the link between the music and the industry, and the fan base and the audience, and there's a gap in between, that how are you going to get that attention, and how are you going to bring people in? And so I believe, my biggest belief is, there's what I call a bridge or a signpost. And so what most artists will do is they'll have their song, and they'll say, everyone, here's my music. The problem with that is, we aren't in on the story. So we don't know the story. We don't know you. We don't know what you stand for. We're not connected. no context. And so the song comes out, unless the song is, the greatest song ever, maybe. But on the whole, people are saying, oh, okay, yeah, that's nice. Well done. But there's songs everywhere. Everything's flying at us from all angles. And what we've got to do is we've got to say, hang on, let me bridge the gap. Let me firstly bring you in and tell you all about myself in a way that you understand, play you music, find that connection, build that value, and build that trust. Once I've done that and you've come in, because whilst that sounds complicated, it's the difference between no, watch your content and go, oh, this is quite good. Let me come in and have a look. And that motion there means I've just come in. I've just come into your house and now I'm in. I'm in your TikTok, I'm in your Instagram, and now I'm looking at your content going, hey, this is good. I'm enjoying this, or this is connecting with me, and I've gone down that little rabbit hole. And at which point then they say, yeah, okay, I'll hit the follow button. Even if they don't hit the follow button, the algorithm's going to show more of your content because you've been watching it. Now, if you can connect a few times more after that, now they've gone from, I don't know who you are, through to, I do know who you are, and I like your stuff, and I trust you. Now we can start to actually get people into the music and get people across to Spotify. But what tends to happen is this idea of, you don't know who I am, you haven't been on the journey, but please go and listen to some music on Spotify that you've never heard before. And that's where people say, I'm just not prepared to take that much of a risk with my time, even though it's only seconds. And that's the bridge we've got to, that's the gap we've got to bridge.
So even though the music business, the music industry is evolving a lot, would you say that there are some fundamental pillars of the business that have not changed and may never change?
Yeah, I think the fundamentals of being an artist won't ever change. They can't change. And so a good song is a good song, which is great. I think when I talk to any artist, any songwriter, I don't think there's many artists who just want to be a one-hit wonder. No one is there saying, I'm going to get in, I'm going to have my number one hit, and I'm out. Everybody wants a longevity career. And if you want that, then that's an artist. And an artist is very different to a singer. A singer is someone who can sing, who can perform, who can entertain. But an artist is someone who resonates and connects. It's a leader who stands for something. And so those connections, those are the things that will always be the same. So if you think about the music that has shaped your life and the artist that has shaped your life from when you were younger, and whether it was your family that used to play music or certain friends that just handed you a CD or said, you need to go and check this out, or you went to go and see a gig. And there were these moments in time where the song was a huge thing, but the artist resonated more. And so then you went down a rabbit hole and you started really enjoying a lot of their music. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what music that is. I remember a moment in time, I was 15 years old and I was playing pool just at like a pool hall. And they had this huge projector screen and MTV was playing, and I wasn't really paying attention. I was 15. I wasn't really that much into music. And Enter Sandman by Metallica came on. And it was, I'd never heard it before, but these drums were playing, and myself and my best friend were just staring at the screen whilst Metallica Enter Sandman was playing. And I remember just thinking, I want to do that. I want to, whatever they're doing is that the coolest thing. That's it. It changed my life instantly because I was like, I need to find out more of this. I want more of this. And then I just all of a sudden pigeoned myself whole into a tribe of certain type of music. And then in, where I was from, everyone would go out on a Friday or Saturday night and go to the nightclubs. And the nightclubs would be boots, 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 boots. And I was like, I don't get it. I don't fit in. I feel uncomfortable. I don't feel safe. I don't understand the people and what they're wearing because I've got long hair and I'm in black t-shirt, and everyone else is in some weird kind of like buttoned up shirt to the neck. And I'm like, I feel very uncomfortable. But then on a Thursday night, there was this rock club, and I remember walking into the rock club. And I'd look, as soon as I walked in, I'd look around at all of these misfits. And I remember just thinking,
Yes.
I feel safe. I feel like this is my people. This is my home. I understand these people. And we talk, complete geekery about music, whether it was like Nirvana or the Foo Fighters or Metallica. Right. And we could just, even people that we'd never met before, we could just connect with music. And so that demographic of me feeling uncomfortable and unsafe in one place and feeling connected and safe in another, that's what the artist does. An artist says, I'm here and I want you all to come in and be a part of this. Yeah. And so whether it's a 15-year-old girl who's just had a boyfriend break up with her and she's lying on the bed and she's crying herself to sleep, or whether it's a 22-year-old skater kid who's wearing baggy jeans and it listens to pop punk music, but everyone kind of connects more than the music itself. Right. It's the music, it's the fashion, it's the people, it's what they stand for. As an artist, the music becomes a part of that. And so that's the bit that doesn't change. If we can make something which is more than the music and is a connection, then we can build fans for life. And if we can build fans for life, then that's where a career comes in, because we can monetize it. And the monetization is something I feel very strongly about, of how we monetize music.
Very well said. So I guess, like, what are major business trends that you're seeing with how artists are monetizing their music or their brand and thriving in those areas?
Yeah, monetization is really, really interesting, and it's brutal. Monetization of music is brutal, because if we think about back in the day when it was CDs, it was easy. You go, you buy the music, you own the music, it's fair. And so, but it wasn't fair, because 90% or 99% of all the music we own isn't owned by the artist. It's owned by the label. Right. So everyone says, no, I like it back in the day where I could go and buy a CD and I get to own it, and CDs were great and the artist would get the money. Well, no, the artist would be majorly in debt to the record label, who's taken all of the debt and owns the master, which means they own the music. So it wasn't particularly a fair system back then. But fast forward to now, if we can build the audience, now we can monetize it in many different ways. But there's a problem, which is the music. It's not that it's not one of them, but music is a very tough way to monetize. So here's something that I was thinking about earlier on today. I might do a YouTube video on this, but this is, if you think about Spotify's monetization, they will pay you for every stream. Right. But that stream has to be over 30 seconds long. So if someone listens to your music for 25 seconds and clicks off, Spotify says, that doesn't count. And so someone says, well, I listened to it for 31 seconds. Yep, tick, you get one stream and you get the 0.04 cents, for example. That's one aspect of thinking about it. But imagine this. If you think about some of the greatest long songs in history, let's take Purple Rain by Prince, which is, I think it's like 9 minutes, maybe
8, 9 minutes. Yeah.
About 8 or 9 minutes. Yeah. Shine On You Crazy Diamond in 2 parts. It's 13 and a half minutes. It's 26 minutes in total. Freebird is 9 minutes. Bohemian Rhapsody's 6 minutes. So when it comes to monetization via streaming, you don't get anything extra by making a longer song than 30 seconds, which is really unfair. So if someone makes 31 seconds and that's the end of the song, then great. If I go and listen to an album, and an album is an average of 12 songs, that's usually a rough average of an album. So 12 songs of, say, 3 or 4 minutes, you're looking at roughly about 40 minutes, which means if that's 12 songs, you get 12 streams. So I'll listen to your entire album, you get 12 streams, and out of that 12 streams, you're getting 0.04. So it means for every full album listen, I listen to your album, if you've got 12 songs, you get 5 cents. Whereas if we broke that 40 minutes up into 30 seconds, now you're getting 32 cents, I think it works out, something like that. So you're getting 32 cents for an album stream. Yeah. If I can stream an album 3 times, that's $1. Whereas with your 12 songs, you're going to get 15 cents. And you can see that one of them is going to do this and the other one's going to do that.
Right.
So therefore, when it comes to monetization by streaming, it's not a fair game because it's a very difficult thing. And the fact that you're only going to get 0.004 cents is rubbish anyway.
Yeah, right.
So what we do is we take that into consideration and we monetize it somewhere else. And we say, no, I'm not going to monetize the music. That's going to be part of it. I'm going to use the music to build the brand.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm going to monetize the brand.
Right.
So this is where you get loads of examples of artists. So if you look at someone like Chance the Rapper, for example,
Right.
Chance the Rapper, no record label, monetizes the music a bit, but brings everyone in, looks after them, and then sells merch. In fact, he sells hats. He made $6 million from hat sales in 2018. So he's not going to make that from a couple of songs on Spotify. No. So you've got something like that. Then you've got things like merch. You've got memberships. You've got Patreon, for example. Right. You've also got things like sync deals. You've also got tickets. Obviously, tickets being a huge one because the Foo Fighters made, I think it was $70 million from their tour in whatever it was, 2018 or whatever it was. So they can make a really good amount of money from touring because their ticket price is quite high. So that becomes the thing. Are the Foo Fighters going to make money from streaming? A bit, but at the same point, the label's taking most of that. But when they go on tour, now they can make money, but they can only do all of these things because they built the audience. Now we're about to enter a whole new phase of crazy. And that's because NFTs are the new thing. And so NFTs are the future of the music industry. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. The problem is what does that mean? And what does it look like? And even I'm working on this. I was working on it today. I'm working with a couple of companies that use NFTs. And even I'm like, trying to figure out what this looks like. Yeah. And it's kind of like when the internet came along at the beginning and everyone just kind of went, pictures. And it's like, no, this is way bigger than pictures. Right. And NFTs is the same. People say, NFT art. And it's like, no, this is a structure of an entire industry because you've got the blockchain, you've got every contract that might ever be, almost like an email kind of thing. Yeah, all the ledgers. And so then it becomes a really interesting question of, well, if you can build the audience, what do you want to monetize? Because the little picture, the little PFP or whatever it's called, the little picture that's attached to it, I mean, that's just a symbol. That's just like a little advert. What do you want to attach? Do you want to say, well, we're going to do tickets, or we're going to do album, meets and greets, albums, and what I love about this is when you start getting less into monetizable NFTs and more about incentivized NFTs. So imagine this.
What's that?
So imagine this. This is, now you're getting me started. I love this.
Let's go. Let's go.
So this is where, imagine you've got your audience and you're saying, hey, the new album's coming out, or the new video's coming out. If you watch a certain amount of content, then that will trigger a new NFT that you'll get. You don't have to buy it, but you've watched 50 of my videos, and because you've watched that, you elevate yourself to the next level and you get an NFT, and that NFT opens up a new part of, say, a membership where you get some unseen footage or something else. And so, you can now incentivize your audience to help you build. And so there's so many ways of doing that, not just with content to say, look, you watch a certain amount of content, it will open up more content, which will open up more content. And then you're gamifying.
That's exactly what I thought in my head. Like it's a big video game.
You're gamifying. Yeah. You're gamifying your engagement. You're gamifying your audience. And in doing that, so they're helping you. But also, imagine if you said, well, like Kickstarter, for example, instead of us funding our album, we're going to use, modern day consumption. I'm going to go on TikTok. I'm going to write a little bit of a chorus, and I'm going to say, maybe I should record this song. Who thinks I should record this song? Of course, everyone goes, yeah, you need to record the song. You need to record the song. So at which point you say, well, maybe I will, but who wants to buy part of this song? And then you could sell as NFTs, 0.01% of the song. And so the person who buys that will then get a royalty from the song, from Spotify. So instead of Spotify just coming straight to you, it gets divvied up to all of these people. And so you might have, say, 1,000 people who pay $10 for that 0.1% of the song. But 1,000 people who pay $10 is $10,000, and you haven't even recorded the song yet. So you've just said what they're getting is they're getting 0. something of the song, like a label. Right. And so all of a sudden, let's say with 1,000 people that have bought it, it adds up to, let's say, 25% of the royalties. You're still getting 75% of the royalties. You probably recorded it yourself. But the best thing about it is you've now got an army of 1,000 people that are going to go and tell the entire world that you need to listen to this song because I'm going to get royalties.
They're invested in it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like an IPO sort of thing. So like thinking of your brand even as like a stock, right? And now all of a sudden your own fans can now buy shares in a song or whatever, and they're like that much more invested in it. And I think you're saying that that's one thing that would be possible with NFTs.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about NFTs is, that was 2 or 3 ideas, but there's so many things that as soon as you scratch the surface, you sort of go, I've just thought of another great idea. Right. And then all of a sudden you're down there and, there's people who are putting on, Gary Vee's doing his V Friends thing. Right, I think they made something like $30 million in Insane. 24 hours or something crazy. And I think the bit that everyone needs to realize, and again, this is where I feel like the most important stuff, the bit that I love is you can't do that without an audience. And that's the bit. So everyone who says, I'm going to do an NFT, well, who's going to buy it? Just because you can make something, it doesn't mean people are going to buy it. It's all about supply and demand. So if you've got 20 people who love you and you're selling 20 NFTs, everyone can have one. Great. Right. They probably won't. Whereas if you've got 20 people who love you and you're selling 2 NFTs, fight for it. That pushes the price up. And so at that point, then they're closer to you and they're in the club and all of those different things. So, it's an incredible beginning. The only thing that we've got to get past now is we aren't set up across the world to use NFTs the same way as we use email and the internet, but it's not going to be long because the cat is out of the bag. So.
Yeah, I've been looking into that space as well, and I actually almost bought a VFriend thing, but I was like, nah, I'll like rather use the money to invest in making my own, or like working towards making my own, so that whenever I do have that audience, then I can leverage that.
And the best thing about it, what you just said then, is let's say you did buy one of Gary Vee's VFriends, and then they sold out. And I wanted to buy one. And I was like, I want to get one. And then you say, do you know what? I'm going to sell my VFriends. Not only because there aren't any left, so the price has just gone up, means you can then sell it for more money. But what's even better is a portion of that money will go to Gary Vee.
I know.
So he actually gets money twice.
Every single time. That's been the most attractive thing about NFTs, is that with the Mona Lisa, for example, right? The original, artist doesn't get a cut every time it's resold, which I don't think it happens, often. But with this, every single time it's sold, and the more your brand has, market value and all that stuff, it just gets that much more valuable, and always will be earning some returns for you, which is just mind blowing. So I'm excited about that.
And then it comes down to, so in which case, what is it that you can do that creates the most value? Because if someone says, oh, you just get my song, it's like, well, that's fine, but I can just go and listen to the song. I'll be able to find the song. I'll be able to hear the song. Whereas if you said, for example, once every year, we're going to hire a venue and it holds 200 people. Right. And we have 200 NFTs, and those 200 people are allowed to come to this venue. Right. And then 2 years down the line, you're playing 12,000 capacity arenas, but you're still doing this one. How much is that NFT worth? Because everyone's going, a gig, can you imagine if the Foo Fighters did a gig for 200 people? Can you imagine if they said, we're going to sell tickets? It'd be like, what do you want to charge? 200 people, charge 20 grand, right. 20 grand a gig, because they can, if they want to, because there will be 200 people that will want to be in the club. And there are 200 people in the world with that kind of crazy money. Right. And they wouldn't be able to do that by 100,000 people, but 200, absolutely, if they wanted to do that. So then they've got the NFT. So they don't have to then do the awkward thing, which is we're going to put our tickets of $20,000 because everyone goes, oh, boo, the Foo Fighters, they've sold out. They're trying to charge $20,000. They say, no, do that yourself.
You
We've
figure
just
it
sold,
out. Yeah.
Yeah, we've sold 200 NFTs, and the NFTs were priced nicely when we did it, and we're still doing it 5 years later.
Right.
And those NFTs keep getting sold around, and they're still getting money in.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That is awesome. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are new and will keep on evolving, and more ways to earn a living, right, off of, the art. But artists are, I mean, we are naturally very like very intuitive and curious, but also I think like after a while we kind of get set in our ways a little bit. And you've worked with so many like different artists and encouraging them to like, hey, like do TikToks, do this, do that, but I'm sure not everybody jumps at that, right? So like, what are some things you're seeing in independent artists or just artists that you think are holding them back from being able to embrace all of these things,
Yeah, I think actually, instead of one thing, I think what you just summed up was probably the big bit, which is tradition. I think we're so caught up in tradition of what the music industry should be that we don't look at what the industry is and how to manipulate it, because it's there for the taking. And so what happens is we're looking at music should be worth something. And I agree, you should get paid for your music. I think it's a complete travesty that you get paid 0.004 cents for your music. And even worse, that that I could go and listen to Purple Rain by Prince, and he would get 0.004 cents for that when it's a 9-minute song.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a horrible thing. The problem is we've got two choices, which is, number one, we can all go outside with our pickets, and we can all shout about it, and we could say, this is not on.
Right.
We can. And we probably should a little bit, but it's time consuming, and it takes away selfishly from you. From you as the artist, because also, like I said earlier, the music industry is a young industry, so it is tradition, but this isn't 1,000-year-old tradition. This is a 30-year-old tradition. This is a relatively young tradition of, so this whole tradition of how we sell music has changed again and again and again and again. So if we look at 1950 to 2022. If you say, well, when was the golden era? And people say, well, back when you could buy music. Well, it wasn't the 50s and 60s, because that was a disaster when it came to the music industry. Then it was like, okay, so the 70s, maybe, but in the 80s, there was a huge problem. And, Michael Jackson Thriller came out. I think that was in the late 70s. And it was one of those, not save the music industry, but there was issues ahead, because there was so much money being pushed out. And of course, CDs came along, but CDs were sort of 2000. And then by 2010 or 2014 or something, CDs had jumped off a cliff. So we're kind of harping on about tiny fragments of the music industry, of the good old days, the golden days. And they weren't as golden as everyone thinks that they were, because most artists were getting ripped off. So rather than have this rose-tinted sort of view of what the music industry used to be like and what the music industry should be like, I actually saw something today where someone had posted something on Instagram, and it said, how much do you think people should get paid per stream? And I was like, oh, that's inviting some good clickbait. Yeah. And the consensus was, nobody wanted to be greedy, but everyone said it should be at least 1 cent per stream, as opposed to 0.003. The problem with that is, can you imagine how much people would have to pay for their monthly Spotify premium for everyone to get paid? It wouldn't be I'm paying my $10 and everyone gets 1 cent per stream. It would be, oh no, I'm paying $350 a month for my Spotify, because otherwise the math don't add up. So that's the system we're in. So for me, it's like, we've got to stop looking at tradition, and what we've got to look at is, how do I play the system? How do I play the system and win? Because with TikTok, with Reels, with YouTube Shorts, with YouTube, with how much money you can be made from ticket sales or streaming or building a library. I mean, even streaming can make something. If you look at my YouTube channel, for example, I'm not a prolific YouTuber, but I've got about 750 videos, which I'm just constantly adding to all of the time. And as long as I do one video a week, I'll probably make, I don't know, somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a month for just from adding. So I'm not going and making 700 videos, but over a period of 5 years, I'm just adding another one and another one and another one, and they're building and building and building. Now, if I went to do 5 videos a week, I could probably get that to $10,000 a month quite easily.
Wow.
I mean, my mental health would blow up, but other than that, I could. So you can make money from streaming, but we have to think of it as what it is. It's like a library, like a record label, and not I've got one song. How do I make $1 million a month from my one song? Because that becomes very, very difficult unless you've got a blow up, a blow up one hit wonder like Gangnam Style or something like that, and even that's going to have a lifetime. Mm-hmm. So it can be done, but we've got to play the system. If you want to make money from streaming, then we can't make an EP of 7-minute songs and then hope to make a fortune from streaming, because we haven't played the streaming game. If we want to go out and do 70 to 100 tour dates, then we have to make sure that we have the best show. And so what does that look like on our socials, and how does the music relate to that? So whenever game we play, we have to face it and say, I'm going to use the music, build the audience, but this is the motorway. This is the road I'm going down to monetize, as opposed to I'll do a little bit of everything. Instead, I'm going to go right down that road. And if it's streaming, I'm going to be making song after song after song after song. If it's touring, I want everyone to know that this is the best touring act of the last 5 years. And I'm going to put pictures and videos all over my socials, and I'm going to make it an event. And that's the thing that I'm going to do. Yeah. And if it's Patreon, then it's like, well, where's the secret value that I'm going to say, here's all the free stuff that you get, but you pay for this little bit. And that bit needs to be amazing. And so therefore, that's the road that you go down. And so you get to choose, but it isn't tradition. It isn't just, I made some music, give me the money.
So I guess is that one of the fundamental mental mindsets you think people need to have? Is just no longer thinking about what should the music industry be, but just saying this is what it is now and this is what it may be tomorrow, and just kind of adapt to that, and even accepting the fact that there would what the music industry should be. That definition will always evolve.
Yes. Yeah, that definition will evolve. And, we could sit here in a year's time and we'll start the whole podcast and be like, whoa, everything's changed. It's gone crazy. Yeah. And, we don't know what that will look like, but I guarantee every year I do one video, which is called the single release of that year. So, this year's the 2022, how to release a single in 2022. Yeah. And it's only 1 year. And every year I have to redo it completely. Wow. Because I'm just sat there being like, half the stuff that we did last year isn't going to work as well because things have changed. Not my fault. TikTok comes along, Instagram comes along, Reels comes along, everything changes. And then you're like, it isn't that I went, I've got a better way. It's that it's just everything changed.
Everything changed.
And so that's what we've got to do. And your job as an artist, because there is anxiety, there's a lot of things to do. So for you as an artist, you're not just writing songs and arranging them and recording them, mixing, mastering, distribution, promotion. Right. You're supposed to be doing radio and all of these other things that you're supposed to be doing and putting money into it. And then someone just goes, and you need to do loads and loads of content on all of the platforms. Right. And at which point your brain just goes, blah, 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 meltdown. Whereas if we say, well, hang on a minute, let's think of this from a different angle. How do we make music that we're proud of and use that music to make content on a daily basis that looks after people? Now, if we say, well, I don't need to make a new music video every single day. Right. I've got to make something which is 10 seconds worth of content that's going to bring people value. And so therefore, it's not just my music, it's my skill. So if I can pick up a guitar or a piano or a ukulele, and I can just put the camera on in a decent place, make it look decent, and I can just, play a chorus of your song or a cover or an idea that you've just had, just to basically just say, hey guys, this is me and my talent and my skill. If you can do that, then that starts to build. That momentum starts to build. And this is going back to that bridge that I said about the bridge in the gap, because
by signposts.
Yeah, the amount of times I'll talk to artists and they'll say, I don't do covers. And I say, well, that I get it, but doing a cover doesn't mean you're a cover artist, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because, no one says Johnny Cash, he's a cover artist. Well, no, he covered a song. It doesn't mean he's a cover artist. Jeff Buckley, Hallelujah, is one of the greatest songs that's ever been. The emotion that's in it, it's not his song, it's a cover. Is he a cover artist? No, he just took a song and made it into his own. And we live in this time where if I can just pick up a guitar and I can play something, then I guess this is the important stuff. You've got two options when you go and do something on socials, which is you can say, here's the song, this is the most important thing. Or you can say, no, I'm the most important thing, and this song is here to back me up. And if I want to go and play an Oasis song, a Foo Fighters song, a Bob Marley song, and I'm going to use that in order to back me up and do something in my way, with my connection, with my feeling, with my arrangement, the song makes no difference whatsoever. The song is just a way that someone else goes, oh, I love that song. I love that song. And then I love what you did to it. And that becomes the primary. It isn't the song, it's what you did with the song. So all of a sudden, you're a ukulele artist and you're singing Three Little Birds. And at which point people are like, wow, I've never heard anything like the way that you did that. It's not the song you've just used, but you've done it in a way that connects with someone to say, I know that song, I understand that song, but now I understand you, the artist, and I'm putting those things together. Now you can knock that piece of content out in a few minutes if you know the song quite easily, because you're only doing 15 seconds, so a bit of the chorus. So then it becomes, what can I do on a daily basis that's me? And I'm not just going to say, hey guys, today I want to play you an Oasis song. Now what you're doing is you're saying, I'm not important, the Oasis song is important, and I'm just entertaining you. Whereas what we're going to do is we're going to say, no, I'm the artist. Bob Marley will do a cover, but at the same point, when Bob Marley does a cover, no one's going, oh, Bob Marley and his covers. They're just going, oh, have you heard the Bob Marley cover that he just did? It's amazing. And so, that to me is the important thing, is how do we make content on a regular basis that speaks to a group of people, a tribe of people that will listen or see something and say, I get it. And so for me, it might be Metallica, but Metallica might, Metallica's not going to go and do a cover of a Foo Fighters song, because they're going to go, well, we're in the same space. It's not going to work. But if Metallica did a rock version of a Bob Marley song, now I'm like, hey, that's so cool. It's so different. It's very interesting and entertaining. And so does it make them a cover artist? No, it just means that they entertained me for 15 seconds of that day. And I bought into them and said, that's cool. I like that. And the three words that I think are the most important thing when it comes to socials is where you get this kind of imaginary phrase, which is see you tomorrow. When someone goes, that's great, see you tomorrow, because they want to see you tomorrow. They might not come searching for you, but they know that when tomorrow comes, they start swiping up, there you are, and they go, there you are, that's cool, see you tomorrow, off they go. And that becomes part of their routine. And you become part of their routine. And then at some point, this comes the right hook where you say, guys, my new single's out. And everyone goes, oh, cool, let's have a listen. And then you play them 10 seconds and they go, I love that. Why? Because they trust you. They trust you from the content. And it might have started with a cover. That's how they might have found you, or a trend or something else. But they found you, they trust you, and they say, by the way, here's my new song. And they say, great. And then they go across to Spotify. And that's where you get this momentum. And if you look at someone like, Ty Verdes, he blew up on TikTok, kept growing on TikTok. He's now got literally on his numbers, hundreds of millions of plays on Spotify. Hundreds of millions.
Insane.
I mean, it's insane. So, when people say, oh, there's no traction from TikTok or Instagram across to Spotify, there is, but you've got to bridge the gap. If you just bring people in and you do, comedy shows and then say, by the way, I've got music out, that's when people say, oh, I didn't come here for the music. Whereas if you say, here's my voice, here's my talent, here's my skill, I'm going to use that across anything and everything, now here's my music. That's when people say, oh, that makes sense. I want to go and hear it. So it's how we make, and then it comes back to that, the art form. This is all about how the whole thing fits into an ecosystem.
So Damian, like what keeps you motivated? What's the driving force behind like your work? I mean, like what's your big why?
It's a good question. I mean, I remember, excuse me, I remember selling a business. I sold the music colleges.
Why do you sell?
I mean, I really believe that people have skills to do certain things, and I love building things. And I don't think I've got the skills to run a £200 million business. It wasn't me. I think, when you start something and it's garagey and it's a bit cool, and I can wear jumpers and t-shirts and I look scruffy and I've got a big sleeve tattoo and it's cool and everyone's like, yeah, startup. All of a sudden, fast forward a couple of years and you're in business meetings and board meetings and accountancy meetings and finance meetings, and I just really didn't enjoy those things, and I just wanted to hang around with the musicians, and I felt like the business was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I feel like I just wasn't growing with it, I guess, and I got very disillusioned, and I guess my heart wasn't in it, and it was very clear to everyone else over a period of time. And so then I sold it, and I love this, like us talking about musicians, like, when you said about NFTs, and I'm like, right, let's get stuck in. This is exciting. I feel like, without sounding a cheesy cliche, I'm a student of this. I know that what's around the corner is exciting, and I want to see what it is, and I want to experiment, and I want to play with it, and I want to understand it. And I think music education is just something I do. But, I definitely have been in a position where, I thought I wanted to retire, and I sold a business, and I was like, oh, great, job done. And the one thing in life that we're going deep now, but the one thing in life is money's great, but it's nothing without purpose. And if you don't have purpose, then life's a lonely, boring, unadventurous place. And if you've got purpose, then the money is not as important as all that. Money becomes a driving factor. Obviously, money's like oxygen. You need it. If you don't have it, you panic. But at the same point, you don't need. I don't need more oxygen. I just need enough oxygen. The purpose, that's the thing that you need. As soon as that purpose gets taken away, and so when it comes to creating as musicians, people want to monetize their music and people want to have a bigger audience. But imagine if you went the other way and said, well, let's just not bother writing songs. Now that to me is a scarier prospect than not having an audience and not having any return of investment from money. When you're an artist and you can't create music, that's a lonely, miserable place. And so I feel like purpose is a very big thing. And I think as creators, we need to create. It's just within us. For you in 40 years time, you'll still whatever happens, you'll still be creating. You'll still go, oh, I've just written this cool thing. That's what we do. And it's what we will do forever and ever and ever. We just like creating. Yeah.
What's one thing you like to be remembered for, in 80 years when, you're no longer here and we're, talking about legends or whatever, like what's something you're like, okay, this is my legacy.
Are we saying that I won't be around in 80 years? I mean, if Elon Musk has his way, I might be able to reject something and I'll be like, just be an old shriveled version. No, I think, I don't think I need the legacy. I just, and this is a really selfish way of looking at it, but I think for me, I just need, whilst I'm here, to be enjoying this.
Yeah.
And if I'm enjoying this, and then as soon as I go and the lights are out and nobody remembers, at least I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I don't need the legacy. What I do need to do is I do need to make the most of my time whilst I'm on this planet. And this, I haven't found anything more fun than this. I love traveling. I spend most of my life not traveling. And all of a sudden, since, it's the last 2 years, I'm traveling more now than I ever have because my office was decimated by all of the nightmares of 2020. And it's weirdly been the best thing that ever happened. Now I travel, and I was in Nashville. I met you in Nashville. Nashville was amazing. And I would never have, I would never have done that if it wasn't for traveling.
Yeah.
But whilst I'm traveling, I want to, I love the music industry and figuring it out and understanding it. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. Very beautiful, Damian. We're gonna now shift gears real quick and do the overrated, underrated. So it's just a little game that we have. I will be throwing out some words. You can give me a quick answer of, yeah, that's overrated or that's underrated. If you'd like to go even deeper into any of them, please go for it. So I'm just gonna do some things out there, and we'll love to hear your opinion on them. So I think I know the answer to this. I think everyone who's been listening so far knows the answer to this, but TikTok. Overrated, underrated. Okay.
Underrated. Do you know what, weirdly enough, is if you'd have asked me this 18 months ago, I would have said, I hate TikTok. I think it's the scourge of the world. The problem is it became more mainstream and less about children dancing and more fun stuff. And then like everyone else, then I found myself on it, just checking it out. And then I was addicted to looking at puppy videos.
Right.
And then I saw the power of it, and I realized it was one of those, same as everything else, it was one of those sort of just dawning moments where you just go, this is really important.
Yeah. Number 2, live music.
Underrated. It's the greatest thing ever. I love live music. I mean, the one thing I would say is, always know why you do something.
Yeah.
And for me, standing on stage, I've done 2,000 gigs, and why would you not love that? Standing on stage, playing songs, even the terrible gigs where there's like, just the bar staff looking at you. Yeah. The bar staff and the dog. And you're like, well, do you know what? I get to play.
Yeah.
And I love playing.
What about artists boycotting like Spotify? So like a Neil Young or
Yeah. That's a good question. Underrated or overrated? That's such a really difficult one, because part of me wants to say overrated because Spotify is the thing right now.
Sure.
Part of me also wants to say, no, songwriters absolutely deserve more. Artists deserve more.
Right.
And I'm caught in between the two. And, the Neil Young incident of the, some would say freedom of speech, some would say standing up for what he believes, whatever it is.
Right.
But the Spotify thing is, I personally think there has to be a better way for artists to get paid. I just, for the actual music itself,
right.
I feel like we are in a weird hiatus between selling music and music being free at the moment. And I think it will come around. I think that, there's a reason why massive artists are selling their back catalogs for crazy amounts of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's because music is becoming more and more utilized, across social media, across YouTube, across Netflix, across everything, so, it is a utilized thing. But I would say I'm always going to stand on the side of the musicians and the artists more than the DSPs. I just want them to be realistic, and I don't want them to spend all of their time and energy on fighting a system instead of actually looking after themselves and making that money for themselves.
Okay. So I think you're going to say just rated. Just rated.
I'm going to say overrated.
Yeah, just rated. Okay, got it. All right. Swansea.
That's a really good one. I love Swansea. I mean, if anyone knows, that's where I grew up. I grew up in a city called Swansea in South Wales, and it's a seaside. My parents still live there, and they have this house which overlooks the sea, and it's so beautiful. It's a bit rough in parts, but it's also beautiful in parts. But if anyone's out there in South Wales, go and check out Swansea. It's beautiful.
Awesome.
Underrated.
Okay. The last one I have on here, Damian Keyes.
Totally overrated. I think, I feel like sometimes what I love about this is I think the reason why I get on with musicians so much is purely because I love this. I feel like I've got quite a practical brain. My wife says I have a very emotionless brain. And so I do think of things in a very stoic kind of way. I feel like I want artists. I mean, I love the fact that I'm relevant because artists are emotional, and I seem to be some weird unemotional soul. And so I feel like I fit. But
Right.
I would love nothing more than for every artist in the whole world to be able to make music and monetize it, making me irrelevant. Because at least that way, every artist in the world wins. I think that'd be. I'll find something else to do. I'll go and knit some socks or something.
Yeah, knit some socks. Yeah, that doesn't sound like something you'd really enjoy.
No, I would be terrible at that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, thanks for your time, Damian. Do you have any last words for our listeners? Anything to plug, advice, word of gratitude, anything you want to share right now?
The main thing I'd say is just keep enjoying, and anyone who's listening, anyone who's stuck, and I'm always around.
Yeah.
Socials, DKMBA, whatever it works, whatever way works for you, I'm always around to help. But the most important thing is the journey of the music and the journey of your artistry is more important than the destination.
That's beautiful. That's almost a parallel quote from the Chop Wood Carry Water book, which is a very, very interesting book that I think anyone who's like trying to master any craft should read. Chop Wood, Carry Water, and that's exactly like one of the main pieces of this. Just enjoy the journey. Yeah, it's an awesome book. It's an awesome book. So, Damian, that's about all the time we have for. Much love to you for being on the show. Where can people find you? Like on your socials, LinkedIn, email, like what's the best way to reach you?
Stick Damian Keyes in somewhere and I will pop up somewhere. Okay. So, whatever platform I'll be on it somewhere. Obviously there's DK Music Business Academy, which is the online education platform, but stick in Damian Keyes and I will be there.
Awesome. Great. And you can also follow me on all socials. Also Paapa Versa, PAAPAVERSA. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. New episodes will be coming every month. Until next time, take care of yourself and your loved ones, and grace and peace to you. Thank you.